just a final note on the election front.
Yeah.
Something again. You and I are guys. We look at stuff. We don't get quote angry about stuff. Just really look at it with a microscope. And I really looked at this election closely, this midterms, because it just, of course, like so many people, my jaw just dropped. I fell off my chair because it was just everything that I didn't think was going to happen logically. But I was really, really intrigued with, there's a gentleman down here, speaking of broadcasters, who's an awesome broadcaster, James T. Harris. James T. Harris, he is called, kind of associate with Russell and Hunter down here. I've talked about them in the past. It's on 550 KFYI down here in Phoenix.
Yep.
But James T. Harris, who's the morning guy, he runs it's called the Conservative Circus, and he's the ringmaster. Awesome guy, African-American guy, reminds me just of Ken Hamlin. I don't know if you remember the name Ken Hamlin, the Black Avenger. But anyhow, James T. Harris, the morning after the election, concluded that in the United States right now, there is a difference between ballots counted and votes counted. Okay? Difference between ballots and votes. A vote is a human being who's correctly identified, who chooses a candidate from any party for whatever reason and casts that vote. However, a ballot can be a combination of maybe voters, but mostly perfecting the art of harvesting ballots. They're harvesting ballots. And in some cases, that word harvesting, it sounds really illegal and stuff, but really, I think in most states, most of it's pretty legal, where you're just literally collecting ballots for people and bringing them to the election office and dropping them off. So, but the concept of ballots, you do not want voter ID. If you're a ballot harvester, you do not want election day voting if you're a ballot harvester. You know what I mean? Because it makes it a tougher job. So the difference between counting ballots and votes, to me, explains everything of the last few elections of why, indeed, the Democrats, I'll just tell you, right off the bat here, the Democrats have perfected the art of gathering ballots, period. And most of it's actually legal. Like I've said several times, the Fettermans of the world, maybe the Katie Hobbs of the world, and they were elected just in the early voting, in the early balloting, mail-in voting, the old mail-in voting stuff, right, Mike? Ballot harvesting. So I think that they won their elections before even Election Day.
Yeah,
so
well, and anything... I mean, but here's the thing, and I heard a lot of complaining and whining about stolen elections, but you could look at it this way: they're smarter and they wanted it more.
Sure, absolutely. We talked about that in the pre-show. It's just a team sport. It's a contact sport now, right? But it's a team sport, and I encourage just to touch on your point here, I encourage every Republican, including myself, post-election, to look in the mirror and say, wait a minute, as a team, could we have done anything better on our end to maybe even win this election and to be able to take, rather than defeat out of the jaws of victory, can we just go and win it handily? And the answer is yes. I think Republicans are getting beat to death on the early balloting and mail-in voting in the months before an election, and they need to get better at that. Do their own, quote, legal ballot harvesting. I've heard there's been a group or two down here that are going to put election kiosks in all of their churches, Mike, and all of their gun shops, and all of the folks where, here you go, let's make it easy for you to vote, drop in your ballot. And in some cases, I know California is the case, I think Arizona is the case, you can walk in with 200 ballots and deliver them. So there you go. Maybe get better at the ground game and early voting. And then, of course, this is a show for another day, but get better at messaging, because I don't think disputing past elections is a great message moving forward, even if they're right. Even if, quote, elections were, quote, stolen. I don't think that's a good message going forward to win elections. So there you go. That's look in the mirror stuff for Republicans.
I had a guy text message me this morning. He said,